They kicked her out of a five-star hotel lobby because she looked too poor. What they didn't know, she funded half the damn building. The truth is, society doesn't fear the poor. It fears power that doesn't look like power. I've worked 12-hour trauma shifts in the Bronx, stitched arteries and stairwells, and been mistaken for the help more times than I can count. In the next 60 seconds, you'll see how a woman turned humiliation into leverage and why being underestimated is the deadliest advantage. This isn't a story about survival. It's about reclamation. And if you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, or told you don't belong, don't scroll. Because the moment she saved a billionaire's life without saying her name, everything changed. And trust me, by the time you hear what happened next, you won't just believe her. You'll remember her. Leah Daniels didn't ask for much that morning, just a quiet place to breathe. She had just finished a double shift at St. Jude's trauma unit. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her eyes were dry, and her heart was somewhere between keep going and just hold it together. As she stepped into the lobby of the Westmont Grand, her only plan was to sit for 5 minutes before catching the next train home. But the carpet wasn't meant for people like her. "Excuse me," a young concierge with too much gel in his hair and not enough grace in his voice called out. "This area is for guests only." Leah blinked a little, confused. "I'm just looking for somewhere to sit while I wait." He cut her off with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "There's seating outside. Security prefers to keep the lobby clear." Just like that, she was invisible. She glanced around. No one else had been stopped. A woman in a silk coat sipped champagne next to the concierge desk. Two business types in suits, twice the cost of Leah's rent, barely glanced up. And yet she was the problem. Leah looked down at her own reflection in the marble floor. Tired shoes, a duffel bag over her shoulder, scrubs stained with sweat and city dust. They didn't see a nurse. They saw a nuisance. She didn't argue, didn't cause a scene. She just nodded, once turned, and walked back into the New York morning. Outside, the wind had turned cold, sharp, like judgment. Leah didn't shiver. She was too used to discomfort. She crossed the street, found a metal bench near a closed coffee cart, and sat down like someone who'd been told to sit their whole life. The kind of woman folks only noticed when they needed saving and forgot once the danger passed. Across from her, the hotel lobby bustled with warmth. She could see people laughing under golden chandeliers, tapping away on glass screens, sipping drinks they didn't need. And yet, just moments ago, they'd acted like her presence might stain the room. She pulled out a granola bar from her bag and bit into it slowly. Her stomach growled, but she chewed like she had all the time in the world. The ache wasn't just physical, it was the kind of hunger that came from being erased over and over again. And the worst part, it wasn't new. 10 years ago, a head surgeon had called her sweetheart while she was saving a kid's life. 3 years ago, a patient's family asked to speak to a real nurse while she held their daughter's artery closed with her bare hands. Last month, her landlord told her she was lucky to even live here after refusing to fix the hot water. This was just another Tuesday. She stared out at the passing cars, and her eyes caught a blur of movement. A man stumbling out of a black SUV alone, hand to his chest. He looked out of place, like his body had quit before his mind did. And then, just like that, he dropped. No sound, no warning. Just collapsed onto the sidewalk like his world had folded inward. Leah was on her feet before she even realized it. The granola bar hit the ground. Her bag swung back. And something inside her shifted. Not panic, not fear, just that familiar focused urgency that said, "Move. Now." She crossed the street in seconds. No one else had moved. Not the doorman, not the concierge who kicked her out. Just her. Just the black woman with tired shoes and sharp instincts. And in that moment, no one knew they were witnessing the beginning of one of those black woman stories the world never sees coming until it's too late. Leah knelt beside the man, her hands already working before her mind caught up. He was unconscious, pulse, weak skin, clammy. No blood, no visible trauma. Just pure shutdown, like someone had pulled the plug on a machine that ran too hard too long. "Hey sir, can you hear me?" No response. She tilted his head, checked his airway, rolled him slightly onto his side to prevent choking. Her fingers moved like they had thousands of times before each action second nature. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck and felt the faint flutter of life. Diabetic episode? Maybe stress collapse, she murmured. People finally began to gather, slow, unsure, like they weren't sure if it was safe to care. A woman in heels gasped, "Is he dead?" "No, not yet," Leah snapped without looking up. "But if y'all keep crowding him like this, he might be." A hand grabbed her shoulder. "Ma'am, step away." It was Hayden, the concierge. "Again. I said touch me again, and I'll make you the second medical emergency today." Her voice didn't rise, but it was made of steel. Hayden hesitated. She looked him in the eye. "I'm a trauma nurse. If you want this man to survive, back up and let me do my job." That shut him up. Someone called 911. Others took out phones, but no one moved like Leah moved. Her focus was surgical. Her energy controlled fire. The man stirred. He blinked slowly, lips parting confused. "You fainted," Leah said. "Calm. Don't try to sit up yet." His eyes locked on hers, dark, exhausted, and wide, with something close to disbelief. "You caught me?" he asked, voice cracked. "You caught yourself. I just kept your head from kissing the pavement." Then she stood, brushed off her knees, and walked away. No name, no request for thanks, just silence. But the man watched her leave like he'd seen something he couldn't explain. Not just a nurse, not just a stranger, something else. And somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered, "Who is she?" The train ride home was quiet, too quiet. Leah sat by the window, head leaning against the cold glass, eyes wide but not seeing. Her mind kept replaying the morning, the humiliation, the collapse, the way he looked at her like she was impossible. But there was no time to unpack any of it. Reality didn't wait for dignity. When she stepped off at Astoria Station, the sun had begun to climb, pushing color into the city's gray skin. She walked quickly, head down, steps firm. Her neighborhood wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't gentle either. You had to move like you meant it. At the corner bodega, she bought milk bread and a single sunflower lollipop. "Morning, Nurse Daniels," the shopkeeper said, handing her change. "That cousin of mine still talks about how you stitched him up faster than the ER." Leah smiled, tired. "Tell him I said keep the scar out of the sun. Always." By the time she reached her apartment, Amara was up, face pressed to the window, like a puppy waiting for the mailman. "Mommy." Leah dropped her bags, dropped to her knees, and caught her daughter midair. "How's my favorite 5-year-old? I colored you a dinosaur," Amara beamed. "But he's a nurse." Leah laughed, real and deep. They had 15 minutes before the babysitter arrived, and Leah made them count. Toast braiding hair, matching socks. She packed a peanut butter sandwich and 3 apple slices into a tiny lunchbox covered in stickers. Then as Amara skipped off with Ms. Porter, Leah sat down at the kitchen table and let herself breathe. The apartment was small, clean. A worn couch, 1 shelf of books, a wall covered in crayon art, and sticky notes that read things like, "You are enough and breathe anyway." Next to the fridge was a whiteboard, Bill's work shifts, Amara's speech therapy schedule. She opened her laptop. A message blinked. "Re-scholarship denied." Her jaw clenched. She had applied for a private school program Amara would have thrived in. Her daughter scored in the 99th percentile on every test, but Leah didn't meet the financial profile preferred by our benefactors. She clicked out of the email, then glanced at the bookshelf. 3 journals, all filled with medical notes and case memories, not typed, handwritten, from memory. She reached for the top one, opened a random page. Patient, G117, March 4th, 2022, 3:11 a.m. male. 48 hypertensive left forearm laceration. Blood type AB. Nurse Phillips administered lidocaine. I repeated suture at 3:24 a.m. 6 stitches. Slight tremor in left hand. Referred neurology. No errors, no hesitation. She remembered everything, and yet still overlooked. Still not enough. It was almost noon when someone knocked on the door. Leah hesitated. She wasn't expecting a delivery, definitely not a visitor. She checked the peephole. A young man in a dark coat stood holding a flat parcel wrapped in brown paper and twine. No logo, no clipboard. "Ms. Daniels," he asked gently when she opened. "Yes." "This is for you." No signature needed. Before she could ask, he was already halfway down the hallway. Leah closed the door slowly, laid the parcel on the table, unwrapped it. Inside a canvas, a painting. It took her breath. She knew this image, though she didn't know anyone had captured it. It was her and Amara on a bench at the park last fall. Amara with leaves in her hair, Leah mid-laugh, head tilted back, eyes soft. She hadn't looked that happy in months. Under the canvas, folded neatly, was a card. "You didn't ask for thanks. You didn't ask for anything. So here's something just for you." N. No last name. No return address. Just that. Leah stared at the note, then back at the painting. Something in her chest cracked open, not pain, not joy. Something more dangerous. Recognition. He'd seen her. Really seen her. She hung the painting above her couch with careful hands, stood back, and studied it. Her daughter's laughter, her own smile, framed, not hidden, not erased. For the first time in years, Leah Daniels felt visible. She didn't know who Nathan really was, not yet. Didn't know why his eyes had lingered after she saved him, or how he'd found that photo, or why her fingers trembled just reading his note. But she did know this. This wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. Nathan Rose sat in his office staring at the painting on the wall. Not the $1 million abstract piece his assistant insisted would impress investors. No, the new one. The one he had framed that morning, a copy of the image he'd sent to the woman who saved him. Leah Daniels. Her name had been hard to find. No LinkedIn, no business card, no website. Just hospital paperwork barely buried in the system, like someone had tried to live under the radar on purpose. But there she was in that photo, laughing with her daughter like the world had never tried to chew her up. And that moment caught from across a park shouldn't have existed. The security team couldn't even explain where it came from. Just that a man dropped it off anonymously to Nathan's office 3 days ago, which didn't make sense, because he was the one who commissioned the painting, wasn't he? He rubbed his temples. Nothing about her added up. Nathan prided himself on pattern recognition business deals, market shifts, body language in boardrooms. But Leah didn't move like other people. She didn't try to impress. She didn't flinch. She had that same look in her eye when she saved his life that he'd seen once. In combat medics, except she'd never served. He checked. He picked up the phone, dialed. "Get me that nurse's full employment record. St. Jude's 5 years back. I want to know every shift, every transfer, every unusual note." His assistant hesitated. "Sir," legal might push back, "I'm not asking for her taxes. I just want to understand what kind of woman memorizes a man's vitals mid-panic and walks away like it's nothing." He paused. "And find out what the hell happened on June 17th, 2021. Her file skips it." He hung up and looked back at the painting. He hadn't imagined her, and he wasn't done with her. Meanwhile, across the city, Leah sat at her kitchen table with 3 open journals in front of her and a cup of weak coffee going cold. She flipped pages faster than most people could skim headlines. Every entry was sharp, detailed, exact. Patient 223, pulse 43. Nurse Jennings forgot to remove clamp. Code blue reversed at 0451. June 17, 2021. Her hand froze. That page was missing. Torn. She closed the book slowly. For a second, her gaze drifted to the window. Her reflection stared back. And for the first time, the woman in the glass didn't look tired. She looked ready. The clinic was crowded that afternoon. Leah volunteered every other Wednesday at a free walk-in center in the Bronx. She didn't need to, she barely had time, but something about being useful without rules kept her sane. Room 3, the front desk nurse called. "Miguel Lopez, 61, diabetes high, BP." Leah entered, chart in hand. The man sat nervously on the table, shirt damp under his arms. His granddaughter sat beside him, twirling a lollipop. "Hey, Mr. Lopez." Leah smiled. You don't remember me, do you? He squinted. You, the nurse from the Flood Roosevelt Hospital. Bingo. June 2019. You passed out in the stairwell holding a cat. He blinked, stunned. That's right. I still have that cat. You had a pulse of 48. Blood sugar 41. You tried to refuse the IV, called me La Bruja Blanca, when I insisted. The granddaughter burst out laughing. He still says that. Leah chuckled, checking his pulse. You're good now, but your pressure's dancing a little high, 154/96. Might want to go easy on the chicharron. The attending physician stood in the doorway watching quietly. After the appointment, he pulled Leah aside. Question. Yeah. How'd you know his old vitals from memory? She shrugged. It stuck. 3 years ago, no chart, no prompt. You even remembered his cat's name. Daisy, she said simply. He shook his head, half impressed, half suspicious. That's not normal recall. Leah just smiled and walked away, but his words echoed behind her like a warning she didn't want to face. Back in the break room, Leah sipped from a plastic cup of lukewarm tea and stared at the window blinds. A nurse beside her whispered, So what are you? Some kind of memory mutant? Leah didn't answer. She just tapped her finger on the desk in a steady rhythm. Because the truth, she remembered everything. Not just people, not just vitals. Numbers, smells, pauses in breath, the way someone blinked when they lied. The exact time a siren passed 3 blocks away. Sometimes she hated it. Sometimes she felt like it wasn't just memory. It was something else. Something more. She wondered sometimes, was she the only one who felt like this? Like her brain worked differently, but people only noticed when it scared them. Had others been told the same thing she'd heard 100 times? You're too much, too intense, too sharp. Maybe it wasn't too much at all. Maybe the world just wasn't ready for minds like hers. Not yet. It was supposed to be a quiet panel on urban medical access. Nathan Rowe didn't even want to be there. The event was half PR, half political theater. A row of CEOs discussing healthcare equity in tailored suits, sipping mineral water flown in from somewhere too expensive to pronounce. He was about to leave when her name flashed across the projection screen. Guest commentator L. Daniels, frontline nurse, Bronx Trauma Unit. He sat up straight. No photo, no intro. Then she walked onto the stage. Same eyes, same quiet power. But now, instead of scrubs and subway dust, she wore a black turtleneck, simple earrings, and a presence that silenced the room. The moderator smiled politely. Ms. Daniels, could you speak to the barriers nurses face when advocating for patients in low-income communities? Leah adjusted the mic. No notes, no hesitation. The barrier is silence, she said. People in power like to call it data lag or process friction. But really, it's just silence. When nurses speak up, they're dismissed. When patients speak up, they're ignored. And when black women speak up, she paused. They're called aggressive. A hush. Healthcare is not broken, she continued. It's designed to work for the few, not the many. And we need to stop pretending that's a bug. It's the system working exactly as intended. The audience didn't clap. They processed. Nathan leaned forward. He didn't recognize her from this angle, not just because of her clothes or tone, but because she spoke like someone who knew more than she should. After the panel, he found her near the back exit sipping black coffee. You, he said. She turned slow. No surprise in her eyes. No fake smile. Nathan Rowe, she said calmly. You remember me. I remember the people I save. He tried to laugh. You have no idea how rare that is. I know exactly how rare it is, she replied, voice steady. He stepped closer. Why didn't you tell anyone that day that it was you? I didn't save you for the PR, she said. I did it because someone needed to. Nathan studied her. You're not just a nurse. She tilted her head, almost amused. You're not just a CEO. Silence hung between them. He said quietly, I looked for your name. Couldn't find much. Good, she said, and walked away. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. Something about her voice stuck with him. Not just what she said, but how she said it. Like she'd been watching the system from behind the curtain the whole time. At 3:12 a.m., he called his tech lead. Pull anything you can on Leah Daniels. Not just medical stuff. Old licenses, leases, donations, anything with her name on it. Boss, that's borderline. Just do it quietly. He hung up. Meanwhile, Leah was on the rooftop of her building. She didn't smoke, didn't drink, but this was where she came to think. Her phone buzzed. It was from someone named Maya J. Archive desk. Hey, they're scrubbing again. Same protocol as 2021. You sure you want to keep flying blind? Leah didn't reply right away. She stared up at the sky and whispered, "They're scared." Then she typed, "Let them scrub. I remember everything." The next morning, Leah entered the hospital early. Quiet corridors, pre-dawn stillness. She stopped at the nurse's station, scanned the clipboard wall, then paused. A patient had been admitted, overnight stroke symptoms, unresponsive, coded under Charity Case 27B. A generic label usually thrown at undocumented folks or unhoused patients. She pulled the file. Something was off. The vitals weren't matching. The meds listed were for a different blood type. And the ID number "it" had a 00 prefix used only for classified government patients. She marched into the attending's office without knocking. "Hey, this file, who signed off?" The doctor looked up annoyed. "Why? Because someone's hiding who this person is. And if we treat them wrong, they'll die." He scoffed. "Daniels, it's a charity intake. Don't go full conspiracy." But Leah didn't blink. She grabbed a pen, scribbled out 3 medication interactions, swapped 1 protocol, and added a hand-sketched waveform of the patient's probable stroke pattern from memory. He stared at the paper. "How the hell did you—" "Just do it," she said. "You'll thank me later." She turned and walked out. He sat there stunned, then glanced back at the intake code. It wasn't just wrong. It wasn't supposed to be there. And Leah had spotted it instantly. Back at his office, Nathan's tech lead called. "Sir, I ran the data, and I found something strange." "Strange how?" "Leah Daniels doesn't exist before 2018. Nathan narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean, her paper trail just starts. Like someone wrote her into the system from scratch." A long pause. Nathan whispered, "What the hell are you?" It happened during the blackout. At 6:41 p.m., the east wing of St. Jude's went dark. No lights, no monitors, no alarms. Backup generators failed. Staff panicked. Patients screamed. Leah didn't move. She was already walking toward the code room when the power cut. Already knew which stairwell to take, which ventilators would fail first, which patients needed to be bagged manually. No flashlight, no hesitation. She grabbed a crash kit and sprinted 4 floors, weaving through chaos with precision that felt less like instinct and more like premonition. The ICU nurse gasped when Leah appeared beside her in total darkness. "How did you—" "Ms. Chang in 14C is bradycardic. You've got less than 2 minutes before her O2 drops below 70. But the monitor's off." "I saw it." The nurse blinked. "You saw what?" Leah didn't answer. She'd seen the twitch in Ms. Chang's fingers when she passed the room 10 minutes ago. She'd heard the pattern shift in the woman's breathing, even through 2 closed doors. She didn't know how. She just did. By the time backup power surged, Leah had already stabilized 3 patients and handwritten 4 revised drug orders, every one of them correct. The attending physician stared at her afterwards, silent. "Anything you want to tell me?" he asked carefully. Leah met his eyes. "No." He nodded once, didn't think so. Hours later, Leah stood alone in the empty stairwell. Lights flickered overhead. She closed her eyes and replayed the entire day. Every face, every sound, every heartbeat, every step taken across linoleum. She could walk back through it all like rewinding a perfect recording. But it wasn't just memory anymore. It was sensing. She could feel energy shift in a room. Could tell if someone had a stroke coming before the symptoms. Could tell if a machine was about to fail before the power dropped. She hadn't always been this way. Something had changed. June 17, 2021. The page missing from her journal. She touched her temple where the scar hid beneath her hair, and for the first time in weeks, she whispered it out loud. They're watching again. Meanwhile, across town, Nathan stared at his screen. On it was a surveillance photo. Blurry, grainy, but still recognizable. Leah, standing over a high-ranking diplomat at a collapsed embassy clinic in Morocco. 3 years ago, smiling. No press, no record, no passport trail. Just her. Nathan stood at the security gate of the Brooklyn Archives building, tapping his badge twice before the buzzer allowed him in. He wasn't sure what he was looking for anymore. At first it was curiosity, then suspicion. Now it was something closer to recognition, like he was circling someone he should have known all along. Inside, the clerk handed him a slim envelope. Per your request. Sealed records reopened after the Daniels flag pinged your clearance. You sure you want to see this? Nathan nodded. I need to know who she is. Back in Queens, Leah sat across from a lawyer in a modest conference room. Wood-paneled walls, a single window. The man wore a bow tie too tight for his neck and a look that said he'd rather be anywhere else. He slid a thin folder across the table. This was supposed to go to your sister. Leah didn't move. I don't have a sister. That's what I figured. She opened the folder. Inside, a notarized statement. A letter from an estate. A trust document with her name, her legal name on it. Leah Amaria Josephine Daniels. She hadn't used that middle name in years. The lawyer cleared his throat. Your biological mother passed 2 months ago. She left a trust property accounts a list of unreleased assets. But most importantly, he paused. There's a video. Leah stared at him. What kind of video? He pulled out a flash drive, slid it across the table. She recorded something the week before she died. Explicitly for you. Not for the courts. Not for press. Just you. Leah didn't touch it. Not yet. That night she sat at her dining table, Amara already asleep down the hall, the apartment quiet except for the fridge's hum. The flash drive clicked softly into the laptop. Black screen. Then static. Then a woman appeared. Hair grayed, eyes sharp. My name is Joelle Daniels, and if you're watching this, then the truth finally caught up with the lies. Her voice cracked. You were taken from me. Bought off, buried, rewritten. But I never stopped tracking you. And now they can't hide anymore. Leah sat still, not blinking, not breathing. The woman on screen took a shaky breath, then leaned forward. I was 22 when they took you. A nurse signed falsified discharge papers. They said you died hemorrhage, no chance of survival. I believed them, for almost a year. Leah's hand clenched around her tea mug, knuckles white. But I kept digging. The woman continued. Found the name of the nurse, found the doctor she owed money to, and eventually, I found a receipt. A literal transaction. You were transferred to a private facility owned by the Whitman Foundation 6 hours after your death. She reached off camera, then held up a document. I've included this in the trust folder. Handwritten ledger. Dated. Signed. Hidden in a locked drawer in the estate for 30 years. Leah paused the video. Opened the trust folder again. There it was. Yellowed paper. Bank stamps. A record of an unregistered infant transfer labeled Daniels Infant Female Viable. Asset moved. Under evaluation. Asset. Not child. The video resumed. I tried to go public, but your grandfather, my father, shut it down. Threatened to strip me from the trust if I embarrassed the family. So I chose silence for a while. She looked away, but I never stopped searching. And when I saw your face on that volunteer bulletin 6 years ago, I knew. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You have my eyes, Leah. You have your father's shoulders. And you have something I never did fire they couldn't put out. Static flickered. Then the screen went black. Leah sat frozen. The documents spread before her. Birth certificate, matching fingerprints. DNA confirmation quietly obtained by a friend of Joelle's. It all pointed to one impossible truth. She wasn't just Leah Daniels' nurse single mother. She was Leah Amaria Josephine Daniels, the only legitimate heir to the Daniels estate, which included 5 commercial properties, one publishing trust, and a sealed intellectual patent portfolio. She had been erased, and now she was back. The office smelled like old leather and arrogance. Leah sat across from Margot Whitman Joel's former attorney executor of the Daniels estate for 30 years, and the woman who'd always said, "Some girls just aren't born to lead." Margot didn't look surprised when Leah walked in. "Ah," she said, "cool. So you found the files." Leah didn't answer. She placed the birth certificate, trust documents, and a copy of the transaction record on the desk one by one. Quiet, controlled. Margot glanced down, not even a flicker of emotion. "I assume you want restitution." "I want the truth," Leah said. Margot leaned back, folded her hands. "Your mother was unstable. She fabricated half those stories. She had video proof. Anyone can fake a video. She had a ledger." Margot's smile thinned. "I warned her. I said if she kept digging, she'd ruin everything. She didn't care. So we protected the family, the assets, the legacy." "You mean you protected yourself?" Leah said, voice low. A long silence stretched. Then Leah pulled out a final sheet. Margot's signature. "On the transfer receipt. She trusted you, and I kept her name clean. You erased mine." Margot stood slowly. "Do you even know what you're walking into? This isn't some fairy tale, Leah. These people, the board, the foundation, they don't care that you bled for patients. They care about bloodlines, paperwork, control. I've seen enough control to know when it's worth burning." Leah didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She gathered the papers. "I'll see you at the reading of the will." Outside, Leah leaned against the elevator wall, pulse steady. The doors opened. Nathan stood inside. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said, "So it's true." Leah nodded. "More than you know." The room was silk and silence. Mahogany walls, gold trim. A chandelier that looked like it cost more than Leah's apartment. 12 people sat at the long table, all in tailored suits, all pretending not to notice the woman in plain black seated at the end. Some whispered. Some stared. Most ignored. The estate lawyer cleared his throat. "Before we begin, there is an addendum." Margot stiffened in her seat. The lawyer continued. "Per Joel Daniels' revised instructions recorded via video testimony, the primary beneficiary of the Daniels estate is," he paused, "Leah Amariah Josephine Daniels." The silence cracked like glass. Someone scoffed. A man 3 seats down said she's not even in the system. Leah reached into her bag. Calm, precise. She slid 3 documents forward. A notarized birth certificate, a DNA test verified by 2 labs, and a sealed affidavit handwritten by Joel, time-stamped and witnessed. "Everything's legal," the lawyer confirmed. "Verified through probate last week." Margot stood, face flushed. "This is an insult to Joel's legacy." "No," Leah said softly. "This is her legacy." Nathan watched from the back corner, arms crossed. He'd seen boardrooms flip, markets collapse, shareholders turn on their own. But he'd never seen silence like this. Not from power, from fear. Because in that moment, Leah wasn't just claiming money. She was claiming memory, truth, blood. And nobody could stop it. A woman near the center of the table leaned forward. "If what you say is true, why now? Why come forward after all this time?" Leah looked her in the eye. "Because now I have proof, and now I'm not afraid." The lawyer closed the folder and nodded once. "It's official. Per Joel Daniels' last will, Leah is the primary heir with full decision-making power over all family assets effective immediately." A ripple moved through the room, more posture shifts than words, the kind of silence that happens when old money loses control. Margot didn't speak. She just stood, straightened her jacket, and walked out without a word. Nathan stayed in his corner. He hadn't planned to speak, but something pulled him forward. He stepped to the table, voice steady. "I've worked with the Daniels Foundation for 11 years, he said. "I've seen the good it can do and the damage it's done when run by the wrong hands." He turned to Leah. "I don't know everything about you, but I know integrity when I see it." Then he looked at the rest of the room. "And if any of you think keeping her out is safer, I suggest you look again. She didn't ask to be here. She earned her way back. Leah didn't react, not outwardly, but her fingers eased from fists to calm. Later that evening, alone in the estate study, she stood before the tall glass windows, the city sprawling beyond. In her hand was Joelle's watch, old gold still ticking. On the desk, a stack of ledgers, blueprints, and a single envelope marked "Not Yet Opened." She didn't open it. Not yet. She looked at her reflection in the glass. And for the first time in her life, the face staring back wasn't someone fighting to belong. It was someone who did. Leah didn't believe in revenge. Not the way movies sold it. Fire, blood, some slow-motion explosion while violins played. But she did believe in exposure. And exposure required strategy. She sat in the estate library, a laptop open, two phones charging nearby. Nathan leaned against the fireplace, arms crossed, watching her work. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. Leah didn't look up. "You've seen the contracts. You know what they buried, what they paid to hide." "Yes," he said. "But going public, that's war." "It was war the minute they sold a baby like inventory," she replied, voice flat. "I'm just flipping the lights on." On screen, she compiled everything. Joelle's video testimony, the forged hospital records from 1991, the wire transfers linked to Margot and the Whitman Foundation, voice memos from a whistleblower, a former assistant who'd retired under suspicious terms. Each file was clean, time-stamped, verified. The kind of truth that didn't need dramatizing, just broadcasting. Leah opened her calendar, tapped a date. "This Friday," she said. 3 p.m. We live stream everything. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Why then?" She looked up at him. "Because that's when the board meets to vote on the foundation's new executive chair. You're going to crash it live. I'm going to own it live." That night, she reached out to someone she hadn't spoken to in years, Nia Foster, an independent journalist with a reputation for exposing institutional cover-ups. They'd met once, briefly after a patient abuse case got swept under the rug. Nia had wanted to publish. Leah had stayed quiet. This time, Leah wasn't staying quiet. She texted, "I'm ready to talk. I have proof, and I want it public." Nia replied in under 5 minutes, "I'll bring the mic. You bring the fire." The plan was in motion. 3 cameras, 1 live stream. No filter. The live stream went live at 2:59 p.m. No countdown, no music, no branded background. Just a table, a single mic, and Leah seated with her hands folded, calm like a bomb that already knew it would go off. "Thank you for tuning in," she began, her voice low but clear. "I'm not here to make a scene. I'm here to tell the truth." Behind her, the screen lit up. Slide 1A, photo of baby Leah, swaddled in a hospital blanket. Dated, tagged. Slide 2, the falsified death certificate, signed by a nurse who later disappeared. Slide 3A, bank transfer memo from the Whitman Foundation labeled Special Relocation, Asset Classification, JD. The comment section exploded. But Leah didn't flinch. She moved to the next slide. "This is my birthright. Stolen, hidden, redacted from every system that was supposed to protect me." In the crowd sat donors, journalists, ex-board members who hadn't shown their faces in years. Some pretended not to know her. Others looked like they wanted to bolt. Then came the video. Joel. That same recording Leah had watched in silence now played for the world. Joelle's voice shaking. Her truth unfiltered. "They bought her, labeled her a mistake. And when I refused to play along, they erased me too." Nathan watched from the wings. Not as a fixer, not even as a friend, but as a witness. He watched the crowd shift in real-time doubt, cracking into realization. This wasn't a scandal. This was a surgical exposure. No spin, no anger, just receipts. The moderator tried to interrupt, once tried to ask for context. Leah turned to her, still calm. "The context is silence, and silence is how they win." She faced the camera again. "You've heard their version. Now you're hearing mine. The difference." She paused. "I brought proof." Leah turned slightly as the door opened. A woman stepped in gray curls tucked under a plain navy hat, back straight despite the years. No one in the crowd recognized her at first. But Leah knew. Nurse Camille Morgan, she said to the room. Lead night shift, Roosevelt Hospital, 1991. Gasps rippled. Margot, seated near the aisle, went stiff. Nurse Morgan nodded. I was there the night Leah was born, and the night she was taken. Leah didn't interrupt. She let the woman speak. They told me the baby died, Camille said. But I saw her breathing, heard her cry. I wrote it down. Then I was reassigned, overnight, out of state, no notice. She held up an envelope. Inside, a scanned page from a handwritten logbook, her original shift notes dated and time-stamped, never digitized. The camera zoomed in. It read, Infant Female Daniels, 3:42 a.m., pink, breathing, no signs of distress, transferred at 6:03 a.m., per special request. The crowd shifted. People checked their phones. Comment sections boiled. Then a man in a dark suit stood from the second row. He didn't ask permission to speak. He just said I was on the board then. Leah's eyes locked on him. I remember Joelle coming to the office, screaming, crying. I thought she was unstable. I was told to stay out of it. He paused, but she wasn't lying. He looked around the room. We failed her. And with that, he faced Leah and said the thing nobody expected. I believe you. That was the crack. The first, others followed. Journalists began whispering. Phones recording. The live stream counter ticked past 1.2 million viewers. And in the back of the room, Margot Whitman stood and walked out again. Only this time, 3 cameras followed her. The press conference ended, but the ripple didn't. Within 24 hours, 2 whistleblower groups had reposted the live stream. 3 former board members issued public apologies, and Margot Whitman's legal counsel announced a temporary leave of absence for personal reasons. Leah didn't care for headlines. She cared for the emails sitting unread in her inbox. Subject: State Attorney Inquiry Formal Review of the Daniels Case, 1991, Sender Office of the Inspector General. She clicked. Inside, a direct request for testimony submission of original records and an invitation to assist in a reopened investigation. They wanted her voice, this time not as a victim, as a witness. Nathan met her at the foundation office. The old plaques were still on the wall, portraits of men in dark suits, none of them smiling. He pointed to the boardroom beyond the glass. They'll offer you a seat, he said. They have no choice now. PR damage control guilt doesn't matter. The point is, you've got leverage. Leah didn't respond immediately. She ran her fingers along a framed photo of Joelle, tucked in the corner. Then said, they'll want me to sit quietly, smile for the camera, appear like forgiveness. Nathan smirked. Then don't smile, but take the seat. Outside, press vans lined the curb. Inside, the Daniels Foundation board sat like school kids at detention, silent, awkward, full of half-swallowed apologies. Leah stepped in. No announcement, no speech. She took the empty chair at the head of the table. And let's talk about redistribution first. They gathered in the same room where Joelle had once been silenced. But this time, the mic was Leah's. Behind her, a projector displayed a single headline, Systemic Redaction, How the Daniels Case Exposed a Pattern of Infant Erasure. Beneath it, links to scanned documents, recorded interviews, and a growing list of similar cases surfacing across the country. Leah didn't grandstand. She just spoke. This isn't just about me. It's about every mother who was told to move on. Every child marked as a statistic. Every file sealed because someone said the truth was too disruptive. Well, here's to disruption. She clicked to the next slide. The Daniels Initiative. Legal aid for women. Silence by systemic fraud. Whistleblower protection program. Scholarship fund for children of lost identity. Funded by her inheritance. No strings, no PR spin. Nathan, watching from the side, nodded once. Quiet approval. A journalist raised her hand. Ms. Daniels, do you see this as justice? Leah didn't smile. She just answered. Justice would have been keeping my mother. Justice would have been not needing to prove I existed. This is correction. And we're just getting started. The feed cut after exactly 45 minutes. No applause. No dramatic walkout. But online, Daniel's truth trended for 3 straight days. Thousands commented, dozens confessed. A movement shifted, and in one quiet neighborhood clinic, a nurse taped Leah's photo next to a quote on the staff wall. Truth doesn't shout, it outlasts. For the first time in weeks, Leah walked into St. Jude's without a badge. No scrubs, no clipboard, just her in a navy coat and worn-in boots. She wasn't scheduled. She just showed up, and the place noticed. People didn't look away anymore. They didn't whisper either. They looked at her. Direct. Curious. A few nodded. One nurse who'd barely acknowledged her before paused at the elevator and said, "Thank you for what you did." Leah blinked. "Wasn't just for me," she replied. The nurse shrugged. Still. Then the doors closed. She visited the NICU, quiet, sterile, humming with machinery. A young resident was charting vitals. He glanced up, did a double take. "You're Leah Daniels." Leah tilted her head. "Depends who's asking." The resident flushed. "No, I mean, Dr. Osei made us watch the live stream. Said if we wanted to understand medical ethics, that was step one." She didn't smile, but something in her eyes eased. Later, she sat in the staff break room. Same chipped mugs, same humming fridge. But someone had left a sticky note on her usual seat. Just one word, reserved. She didn't touch it, didn't pocket it either. She just sat down and let the silence settle around her like a second skin. That afternoon, she stopped by the hospital chapel. Not to pray, just to breathe. The same woman who'd once barred her from seeing Amara was lighting a candle inside. She turned when she saw Leah. For a moment, no one moved. Then the woman whispered, "I was wrong." Leah didn't answer. She didn't need to. The truth had already spoken loud enough. Leah unlocked the apartment quietly. No ceremony, no "I'm home." Just the click of a key and the soft thud of the door behind her. Amara was on the couch, headphones on, eyes glued to a tablet. Leah paused, watched her daughter's profile, the same slant in the nose, same tension in the jaw when she concentrated. Amara didn't look up. Not at first. Then, "I saw the clip," she said, voice flat. Leah didn't move. "Okay." Amara pulled her headphones down. "You didn't tell me. You weren't ready." Amara turned to face her. "I was ready. You just didn't trust me." Leah swallowed. "I didn't trust the world not to break you the way it broke me." Silence stretched between them. Not heavy, not hostile, just full. Amara blinked. "So is it true?" "Yes, all of it. Every page." Another pause. Then Amara got up, walked to the kitchen, poured herself water, stood there like she was considering the weight of the glass, and said, "So what happens now? You gonna become rich and famous or something?" Leah chuckled softly. "No, I'm just gonna keep showing up." Amara looked over her shoulder. "For me." Leah didn't flinch. "Always for you." The girl nodded slowly, then crossed the room, stopped just a foot away, eyes on Leah's, and for the first time, not with distance, not with doubt, but with something closer to understanding. "Okay," Amara said. "Okay, Mom." That word hit different. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. And Leah didn't cry. But something in her finally exhaled. The invitation came printed on cream cardstock. No email, no flashy fonts. Just Community Honors Evening. In recognition of medical integrity and advocacy. Honoree Leah A.J. Daniels. At first she thought it was a mistake. She'd never seen her name printed with that much space before. Like the world had finally made room for it. The auditorium smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Rows of chairs, soft amber lights, folded programs that read, "Truth is the loudest when spoken calmly." Leah stood backstage in a simple black dress she almost didn't wear. Nathan adjusted her mic. "You nervous?" She glanced at him, terrified. He nodded. "Good. Means you still care." The host's voice echoed through the room. "And now, our final honoree of the evening, a nurse, a truth-teller, and a woman who reminded this city what integrity under pressure really looks like." Applause rose. Not thunderous, but steady, respectful, earned. Leah stepped forward. The podium felt colder than she expected. She cleared her throat. "No one gives you a title like truth-teller." she began. You earn it, usually the hard way. Laughter rippled. She smiled small but real. I didn't ask for this fight. I didn't want a spotlight. I wanted safety for my child, for my patients, for my mother's name. She paused, looked out at the crowd. I never got to thank her properly. So if you'll allow me, tonight I share this with Joelle Daniels, the first woman who ever told me I was enough. Silence. The kind that meant people were really listening. When she stepped down, no one rushed her. But they didn't ignore her either. People reached out, hands, eyes, nods. Not to take, just to acknowledge. And in the back of the room, Amara clapped. No phone, no distractions. Just both hands. Proud, present. The seminar room hadn't changed. Still smelled like whiteboard markers and overwashed fabric chairs. Still had that flickering bulb near the back corner. But today, Leah wasn't sitting in the third row, hoping to be noticed. She was standing at the front, with her name on the schedule. Guest lecturer, Leah A.J. Daniels, R.N., speaking on ethical crisis and personal advocacy in medicine. She didn't wear a blazer, didn't need one. Just a crisp button-down sleeves rolled up and a voice steady from everything she'd survived. The room was full. Young residents, admins. 2 board members from the foundation sat in the back, not out of politeness, but because the hospital had asked for her. Leah opened without a slideshow. Most of you know who I am, she said. Some of you still don't believe what happened. Pause. That's okay. Belief isn't what saves people. Action does. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. For the next 40 minutes, she talked them through the gap between protocol and principle. What happens when the system fails? How to document, protect, survive. Not from a textbook, from memory, from blood. Near the end, she paused, lifted her eyes to the room. Sometimes the hardest part isn't proving the truth. It's living with how long it took for someone to believe you. She let the weight of that sit, then finished simply. And yet, here we are. When she stepped off the platform, nobody clapped right away. Not because they weren't moved, but because they were still processing, still feeling. That kind of respect took a second longer. In the hallway, the same senior administrator who once tried to have her terminated stopped her mid-stride. Didn't smile. Didn't fake humility. Just looked her in the eye and said, if you're ever ready to teach full-time, the door's open. Leah didn't answer. But this time, she didn't need to fight to stay in the room. It was late, the kind of late where the world goes quiet enough to hear your own heartbeat. Leah sat on the balcony, city lights like distant stars. A mug of tea in her hands barely touched. Amara stepped out barefoot, wrapped in a hoodie too big for her, hair still damp from a shower. She didn't speak at first, just leaned on the railing beside Leah. I watched the clip again, Amara said. Which one? Leah asked, half a smile. The one where you said you weren't trying to be brave, just truthful. Leah looked down at her tea. I wasn't. Amara nodded. Still brave, though. They stood in silence for a while. Then Amara turned. There's something I wanted to ask, she said. Not about the past, about before all that. Leah tilted her head. Yeah? Amara hesitated. When I was 6, she began, you used to tell me stories about a lioness who lost her roar. Leah's eyes softened. I remember. You said she didn't need to roar, just needed to remember who she was. Leah chuckled. Sounds like something I'd say. Amara looked at her. You think she ever got it back? Leah didn't answer right away. She just reached out, tucked a loose curl behind Amara's ear and whispered, she didn't get it back. She grew a new one. Amara didn't hug her. She didn't need to. She just looked at Leah and said, okay, good night, Mom. And then one step inside. Good night, Ms. Daniels. Leah blinked. Not at the mom, but at the Ms. Daniels. Said not like a title, but like a name that finally fit. No questions, no qualifiers, just hers. Leah stood in the middle of a room that hadn't existed 6 months ago. No marble floors, no gold plaques, just a converted storefront in Southside Brooklyn, clean lines, warm lights and a sign above the desk. The Joelle Project, Advocacy, Healing, Legacy. No one applauded when she cut the ribbon. She didn't want them to. This wasn't about headlines. This was about infrastructure. Her team was small, 5 women, 3 of them formerly incarcerated. One spoke 5 languages. One had survived a trafficking ring in Atlanta. One used to be a caseworker who quit when the system told her to look away. They didn't wear suits. They wore purpose. The first client walked in 20 minutes after the doors opened. Black hoodie, shaky hands, baby in a carrier. Didn't say her name. Didn't have to. Leah offered her tea. Listened. No clipboard, no clock watching. Just space. That afternoon they filed their first legal motion, an emergency housing order, for a mother forced to choose between shelter and losing custody. By Friday the child was back in her arms. No press release. Just one mother sleeping better. Leah didn't post about it. But word traveled fast in neighborhoods where help doesn't usually arrive. And when it does, it walks in quiet and stays. Back at home, Amara watched her from the kitchen. You turned a scandal into a center. Leah shrugged. I turned my pain into a blueprint. Amara poured juice, thoughtful. You think people will really show up? They already are. The stage was glass and chrome. Rows of delegates from over 40 nations. Translators in booths. Security in suits. Cameras blinking like quiet eyes. Leah stood behind the podium, a simple lapel pin on her blazer, the Joel Project's logo, a lioness roaring in profile. She didn't read from notes. She didn't need to. I'm not here as a survivor, she began. I'm here as a systems builder. Murmurs rippled through the room. Confusion, interest, attention sharpened. She continued. Every woman whose file was sealed, every case dismissed as exceptional, those aren't stories of misfortune. They're data, and data demands redesign. Slide by slide, she broke it down. How certain hospitals systematically classified unwanted births, how legal language buried mothers under bureaucratic fog, how silence wasn't an accident, it was a feature. And then she offered the blueprint, the Joel model. Community-first reporting structures, trauma-informed legal navigation, survivor-led review boards. No pity, no pleading, just strategy. And that's what made it revolutionary. After the talk, a Kenyan delegate approached her, said nothing at first, just handed over a folded note. It read, "Your story is ours too. Let's build together." Back home, Amara watched the live stream on her tablet. She didn't cry. She just hit pause, rewound the moment Leah said, "I'm not here as a survivor," and played it again, and again, and again. The room smelled like crayons, acrylic paint, and the faint tang of hair grease. 12 girls sat in a circle. Braids, puffballs, box, locks, nervous energy. A whiteboard behind Leah read, "You are not too much. The world has just been too small." No desks. No yes ma'am required. Just open notebooks, juice boxes, and space to unlearn shame. Leah passed around small mirrors. I want each of you to look yourself in the eye and say 3 words, "I am mine." Most giggled. One muttered it under her breath. But one girl, maybe 12, maybe 13, locked eyes with her own reflection and said it like a dare. I am mine. After the session, she lingered. Chipped black nail polish. Hoodie too big. Sharp, tired eyes. "Ms. Daniels," she asked. Leah turned. "They really called you too much." Leah nodded slowly. Too loud, too angry, too stubborn, too sharp. The girl blinked. "That mean I'm not crazy?" Leah sat on the edge of the desk, unclasped the ring on her finger, thick silver engraved inside. Handed it to the girl. It read, "Too much is just enough." The girl smiled, but only with her eyes, and whispered bet. Later that night, Leah sat with the ring back on her hand, sipping tea. Nathan texted, "How'd it go?" She replied. She saw herself. Pause. Then typed again. And she didn't look away. He garden behind the old community center was nothing fancy. Plastic chairs, string lights borrowed from someone's porch, a folding table with a pot of gumbo and store-bought cupcakes. But Joelle's photo sat in the center, framed in cedar, surrounded by jasmine. No podium, just voices. An elder woman from the neighborhood stood up first. I knew Joelle when she still braided hair on her stoop, she said. Didn't charge half the time. Said healing had to start from the scalp. Laughter, low and warm. Another spoke of her poetry. One man talked about how Joelle once marched alone down Flatbush when the cops wouldn't touch a domestic call. She didn't wait for backup, he said. She was backup. Leah sat quietly in the third row, not as a guest of honor, not as a speaker, just as Joelle's daughter. For once, that title felt like enough. An old man's skin like carved leather, voice like gravel, turned to Leah. Tell me, child, he asked. She didn't die in vain, did she? Leah looked up, didn't speak. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of folders. Inside, 12 active cases the Joelle Project was handling. 12 women who wouldn't be erased. She passed the top folder to him. He nodded, said nothing more. As the evening ended, a child lit a candle and placed it next to Joelle's photo. And for the first time since all of it began, Leah whispered just loud enough for the flame to hear. I'm still here, Mama. We all are. The mic was simple. No studio, no ring light, just a second-hand recorder on a wooden desk in her bedroom. Leah sat with a cup of water and a folded photo of Joelle tucked under her laptop. She hit record, paused, breathed. Hey, it's Leah. Some of you know me from the press, some from a hospital file, some from a rumor that refused to die. But I'm here to tell you this isn't just my story. It never was. She leaned back, voice steady. I spent years thinking truth had to shout, that I had to scream just to be seen. But turns out, all it needed was to be said, clearly, repeatedly, and without apology. She told it all without tears, without rehearsed drama. How they erased her mother, how they doubted her worth, how she reclaimed her name not in court, but in community, and how the real victory wasn't exposure, it was expansion. At the end, she said, if you're listening to this, maybe you've been called too much. Maybe they told you your truth was too loud, your questions too sharp, your power too raw. If that's you, let me say this plainly, they were never ready. But that doesn't mean you were wrong. Subscribe to Black HerStory Told if you believe stories like hers deserve to be heard, not polished, not packaged, just real. Because one voice tells a truth, but 1,000 that becomes legacy. And let the quiet fill the room like a hymn, not an ending, a beginning.